Well, Michele, welcome to the podcast. I am actually thrilled to have you here, and I so thank you for making the time.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It is. Well, I always have fun because it's just selfishly my opportunity to connect with you and have a longer conversation. It just so happens we record them. But I want to say first and foremost, I've absolutely been loving your book. And it's beautiful. It's the little book of big knowing, tiny bursts of insight to wake up your soul. And of course, friends listening and watching, we have links. But I wanted to just dive right in with what inspired you to write a book?
Well, golly, that's a great question. So this is the book that I wish I'd had like 10 or 12 years ago when I started down, technically started down my spiritual path. We're always on our spiritual path, right? But when I was really starting to question things and I had this great, wonderful, beautiful life and nothing was wrong, but something was missing and I couldn't put my finger on that. And so I really needed a book or a person or a class or something to just kind of help wiggle some of my beliefs and my notions of how a life should be led, right? So I needed something just to kind of crack me open just a little bit and in a gentle, playful, lighthearted kind of fashion. I didn't want to have another dogma come in and replace the things that I'd already learned. So this is kind of the book for that woman I used to be. And it was all the little bitty nuggets that I've kind of learned along the way and the things that I've gleaned and the things that I wanted to give her. Like, without you, I wouldn't be where I am now. And so I wanted to give that woman who I used to be like, look what we've done. Look where we are. Look all we've learned. Look who we've become. So that's kind of what inspired me to write the book. And it almost wrote itself. It was very fast. And so it just kind of poured out of me, and it would pour out of me in these kind of bursts and spurts. And that's why I suggest people read it that way. Because
I love that.
Yes, just read a page and let it kind of settle into you and marinate and let it pose your own questions and see if it works for you. And then go back and read another page. And I even suggest that people don't read them in order. Let your intuition kind of guide you and just open the book and see what happens. Because that's how it was written, in these kind of burst of insights and inspiration.
I love that. And I want to go back after we follow up a little bit on the book to actually hear about your own journey more, to go back from the work that you're doing now to what you were doing previously in that pivot. But there was one thing that really struck me. There was actually two things that struck me. Your dedication. I really like the first thing that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to ask her about the dedication. Dedicated to all the courageous souls who are taking the leap of faith to remember. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got chills. I actually am getting chills just saying that again, because I feel like this book is these inspirations to spark the memory of who you really are.
Exactly.
Of your divine self, the knowing, the energy that you came into. Can you expand on that a little bit, this idea of remembering?
Yeah, so a lot of people, they frame it up as they want to learn something. They're like learning a lesson while they're here, or they're figuring out their purpose and all that good stuff. But to me, it really feels more like you're already divine. You are already spirit. And what we're doing is just remembering that as we're here. We're just kind of peeling back some layers so that our bright light can shine through. You're not discovering your light, you are the light. So you're just allowing it to shine and remembering that true self. And so when, from our human perspective, sometimes that can feel like we have to be brave or courageous because it's a little bit outside of our cultural norms. And so sometimes, especially initially, it feels like, your other friends aren't doing this, or your family's not doing this, or they're not necessarily curious about, divinity or spirit or souls or any of that stuff. So you sometimes feel like you're kind of stepping outside of the box, but what you're really doing is stepping more into who you truly are. And when we relax around that and just kind of let that take us, if you will, then it becomes easier and effortless and more fun and more, we make our own journey brighter and happier and more joyful, if that makes sense.
Oh, it completely makes sense. And tell me a little bit about your own journey, because it sounds like you did come home to yourself and realized your gifts and how you wanted to show up in the world and help people with your gifts. But what was that like for you in your trajectory? Was,
Yeah. So first of all, let me say it's a never ending journey,
of
right?
course,
So we're
right?
never done, you know? So we're always becoming more and more of our true selves if we let ourselves be, right? So
Mhm.
it's kind of like you figure some things out and then you go along that path for a little while and then more gets revealed. So we're never finished, I don't think.
That's
Even
true.
when we transition back into souls, I think it's just part of who we are. So but yeah, so initially, this started for me like in my mid 30s, where my life was really great. I mean, I had no complaints, but something was missing and I couldn't figure out what that was. I could not put my finger on it. And so I did lots of what, some people call it the dark night of the soul, which makes it seem really heavy.
Yeah.
A lot of soul searching, but just really kind of trying things on for size. And I started with easy things that a lot of people start with that are kind of more acceptable, like yoga, and I remember I was talking to one of my girlfriends recently. I said, we took our first meditation class in Memphis, Tennessee, which was unheard of 10 or 12 years ago. We would sneak into class. We didn't want anyone to know we were meditating. It was a big secret. So that really, we were just so self-conscious about exploring anything that kind of quieted this outer world that can be wonderful and fun and exciting, but also, it's glaring. It's like a neon sign where when you're really interested in tuning into your soul and your spirit, it's gentle and subtle and quieter. So you've got to kind of let this go for a little bit in order to hear your own inner wisdom. And I did lots of things. I did retreats and classes and lots of things to explore. And then what happens is it's a readiness, right? So it's a readiness on our part, kind of a willingness and openness. We get to kind of an inner place where spirit can really work with us. And
Yeah.
then that's what happens. So I did lots of exploring, and then I became a traditional life coach and went down that path and enjoyed it and loved it. But I kept finding myself wanting to go deeper with people. I wanted to talk about their soul and their and the energy behind the things, but why they were doing them. And so as I knew that the life coaching was kind of like it was a layer for me that I still use in my skills, but I wanted to go even deeper into the energy and our broader path, so to speak. So that led me to developing my own intuition and also helping other people develop theirs, and doing readings and all sorts of things for folks. So that's where my passion lies. Yeah.
I love that. And sometimes we need those traditional approaches so that we have some sense of what we should do. So we try things on for size, and then you find those moments of clarity where you genuinely get lit up when you start talking about, let's say, soul's work or your inspiration, or where you kind of just polish your approach a little bit to make it more in alignment with what you're excited about talking about, what you want to teach your clients.
What I find for myself and for a lot of my clients, Lexa, is that from say where you're starting, you can't see that far down your
No.
path. Like I couldn't have seen to intuition and, reading for folks. Like that was not a possibility from this point. So
Right.
you follow the next step and the next step and the next step, and you allow your inner wisdom and your intuition to kind of guide you. And it's not always a linear path. Souls are, humans, we love it. Point A to point B.
Right.
Souls are so curious and so full of adventure and wonder that you'll zigzag or you'll circle back or sometimes it is a straight shot. It just kind of depends on your nature and your soul's nature. So you kind of follow the breadcrumbs, if you will, and then from the next point, it's almost like your path rises up beneath your feet. And so from that point, you can
I
see
love that.
the next point and then the next point. But you
Right.
can't expect to see it from back here. It's
No,
just
and it's funny
we would
about
like
fear.
to, I
No.
was like, let me figure it out and I'll go do it. But that doesn't really happen.
No.
So So it's these little bitty breadcrumbs that feel like personal evolution. That's what they feel like. So
Yeah.
you just allow yourself to do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, and let that take you to what brings you more joy and fun and adventure. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that those little tiny things, it's so funny how fear wants to keep us, or our ego wants to keep us in a place where it's like, God forbid we make a mistake, or if we waste our time or our money, or if people laugh at us. And the truth is, the joy is the journey. And the playfulness and the creativity and what you're talking about is such, it's a joyful experience. So it doesn't even become about the destination, but it becomes about this great reveal of who you really, really are. And I want to go back to your book for a minute, because I find that, in life, we do need moments to bring us home, reminders to bring us home. We need to change up our day and our habits and find those little nuggets of inspiration so that we can just keep going. But there was one that caught my eye. There was a day that caught my eye. And again, friends listening and whatnot, what's cool is that each day is just a short little chapter, something to think about. And similar to Wishwork, it's just like one little thing to make you think and ponder life and reflect on life in a different way. So I saw, and I really wanted to ask you about All In. I like that. Page 83. So I want to read this and then we can chat about it. But the chapter title is called All In. The secret to genius or mastery is being all in, believing it before seeing the results, getting a glimpse of the creation completed and holding that vision until it's manifested. An easy way to do this is to find the feeling of the thing completed and become the vibrational state before the dream is realized. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what we do when we're doing the Wishbeads visualization, just projecting with our imaginations. What does it feel like if you're living your wish? But can you expand on that a little bit? Because when I read that one bit, I was like, I love this idea of just be all in and feel the vibration.
Yeah. So anything that you want to manifest or anything that you see as part of your true self, an expression of that, right? So, and it can be expressed in a zillion different ways. So you don't have to hone in on a very specific thing. I have lots of things to say about this, so let me keep it. So if you can find the feeling state of that, what you imagine it would be like to be there, because that emotion that you evoke will help you hold that vibration or that frequency, because that thing that manifestation that you want is an energy. It's a frequency. So you want to match that. You want to be it before you have the thing, right? And so the imagination and the visualization can come in, because that will help you hone the frequency. That's the key to honing the frequency. So, but then you almost have to allow yourself to kind of open up to that and expand beyond that, because the universe is super creative and they know what we're going to like better sometimes than we know what we're going to like.
Yeah.
So you then open up even further to say, okay, this is the frequency I want. This is what I'm in my mind, I can picture with my imagination, but then allow the universe to bring that frequency to you in a way that might even be better. So don't demand from the universe that the specifics play out exactly as you see them in your mind, because they might have a better idea that we can't see from where we're standing.
Yeah.
You just have to find the frequency and the vibration of it. And so when I talk about being all in, because sometimes we're our own worst enemy, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And the fear comes in, the doubt comes in. You've already mentioned this, Alexa. And so then we start to question, like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And so that fear and doubt, what it does is we've got like a stream of energy kind of, flowing in one direction. And then we split it, because then we doubt ourselves, or then we question what we're doing, or then we fear that someone's not going to like it. And we split our own energy, and it becomes diffused and not as magnetic and powerful. So when that happens, those doubts and fears that come in, how I've been framing it up for myself is I see that as a way to be even more free.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, wait, that's still a limitation I'm holding for myself. So how can I pop that little doubt bubble and then keep going, keep feeling this freedom, this vibration, this joy that I want to feel. So I don't see it as a problem that has to be fixed anymore. I'm trying to reframe that for myself and for my clients, but as something that can just be popped in order to be even more free in this game of life.
Yeah. This morning I was thinking about this idea of changing the frequency. Like it's almost like you're changing the dial on a radio,
Mhm.
old-fashioned radio, I guess. But lately I have been bringing my awareness. If I'm finding that I'm going down like a rabbit hole of negative thinking or projecting about this, that, and the other that is not in alignment with a higher vibration, more of like a dragging thought, I will change the energy of the room by lighting a candle or using an essential oil, or my friend makes these amazing moon water sprays, putting on music, changing my energy by like treating myself to a warm cup of tea or something that it's like, no, I am going to create a different vibration with intentional action to almost like reboot my own computer.
Yeah, sure.
you
So
know?
it's all kind of part of the package, right? So we've got the mental stuff going on, we've got the emotional stuff going on, the energy, which is really, the first and foremost, and then the action. So all three of those pieces have to be almost in alignment in order for the energy to change, right? So if action is something that makes it easy for you to shift this part of you, then start there. If the middle part is easier to shift, then the action part, start there. So that's why some people say, oh, I went for a walk and I felt so much better, because
Yeah,
the action shifted this, right? And then it
right.
shifted the emotional and it shifted the energy.
Yeah,
So it's different for everybody, and different circumstances require different tools. So,
exactly.
sometimes the walk is the easiest thing to do. And I am totally a believer in take the path of least resistance. Do the easiest thing. Don't make
Right,
it harder on yourself,
right.
So if it's easier to go take a walk than to sit down and do all the mental work of changing the thought so that you're scooping out of fear, then do the action part. I'm
Yeah,
a huge believer in take the path of least resistance.
yeah.
It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enlightening. Spirit is full of fun and love and joy and bliss. They use all those great emotions and frequencies to entice us this way, right?
Be like, I want that. Like that when Harry met Sally moment where you're like, I'll have what she's having.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And our life is supposed to be more of that. And so anything that kind of leads to that, yes, say yes, yes, yes. That's all we
Say
do.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely 100% yes. And I love that your work now you're really stepping into, the intuitive part of your coaching and positioning it as such. And I'm wondering if you can share a few words of advice for people to help them either trust or develop their own intuition. Maybe sharing a little bit about your own journey of awakening to that ability, and but how you help your clients cultivate that intuition in their own lives, because we all have that. But
Yes.
some of us feel like, oh, I don't have that. I need to go to somebody else and trust their intuition. But how do you develop your own intuition to help
Yes.
guide you?
Yes. So your own inner wisdom is the most important thing that you can develop. And you are 100% right saying that we are all intuitive. Um, and we label it different things. We kind of dance around it. So they talk about mother's intuition, and they talk about, a stockbroker's hunch and he followed it, or, someone's in the flow of their sport, or, gut instinct or heart wisdom. Like we dance around it all the time, right?
Mhm.
But we don't really give it a whole lot of credit, because our analytical mind wants to come in and then question like how you got that information or why you're
Yeah.
feeling that way. Or so we tend to doubt it because we can't understand where it comes from with our logical analytical brain.
Mhm.
So let me say that first. Everyone's intuitive. Everyone, everyone, everyone. And we all recognize when it happens. You're thinking about your sister and she calls you on the phone. That's an intuitive hit. Or you're in traffic and you're going down one path and all of a sudden you take a left that you never go down, but you miss the gnarly traffic jam even further up the road. Like we all have these things that we can't explain. And the best way I have found to number one, to tap into your intuition is to have a relationship with silence. So there is so much going on in our outer world that is beautiful and wonderful, but also distracting. So
Totally
many
distracting.
noise and stuff going on. So the first step I would suggest is to really get in touch with silence and start either like a meditation practice, or go out and watch the sunset every night, or take a walk in nature, but really start to have a relationship where you're quieting yourself, because that energy, that intuition is subtle, and it is like a whisper sometimes, and you gotta really turn your inner ear into that. And so once you kind of get comfortable with silence and get comfortable with tuning in, that's kind of the first step. You've got to make that okay. And then you'll start to notice things. And a lot of people start to notice, feelings, and they start to notice that they know what someone else is kind of thinking, or they can assess the situation quicker. Like they're doing these things automatically already, but you become more aware of them as you become quieter within yourself. You stop thinking so much and listening more with this part of you, the heart center. So, so silence is number one. And then the second thing I would suggest is finding, and this can be whatever it is does to whoever's listening, is finding your own center. So we have, energetically, we do lots of things with our energy that we don't realize we're doing. So one of the first things I teach my folks is, we've scattered our energy a lot throughout our day. Lots of people who are even listening to this are thinking about their mom, or worried about their kids, or they've got something to do for their job, or they got to get the groceries later. So they've got their energy kind of in a lot of different places. So oftentimes throughout the day, I'll just ask for my energy to come home. And you don't even have to know where it's been. But if you'll just say, okay, I'm just ready to kind of gather myself again, you'll notice it starts to feel, you start to feel whole. You start to feel kind of full or complete again. So that's another thing you can do to kind of just bring all of yourself back to you. And then
I love, wait, before Michele, we can't go on yet.
Okay.
Because I love that so much. I love this idea so much. I can't even tell you. And it just resonates with me, and I'm getting like chills. The second you said that, I was like, wow, that is such a beautiful call to just like literally calling in your energy and say, like, come home to yourself. I am like, my mind is blown. Because I talk a lot about this kind of stuff, but what a gorgeous and special reminder. Thank you for that. Like, thank you for me personally. And I'm sure that all of us can relate. And prior to this, honestly, I was working on something, but as you know, the notifications come in, and this needs to be addressed. And I thought, and I was doing some writing, and writing is a time for me where I literally cannot have anything interrupt me, because the amount of energy that it takes to get it back, to get the deep focus back, it's something like 27 minutes. It's the biggest waste of time to be pinged and dinged. And so I love this idea that, let's say you are in life, busy life, which everyone can relate to, and allowing yourself to energetically come home. Whoa, thank you. Like, bring all the wild horses back. Come on, baby.
Exactly. Gather them back in.
Everybody needs to come on back to the barn.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I didn't want to interrupt you. Number 2 is so juicy. I had to take a moment.
Yeah. No,
I'm ready for number 3 now, Michele.
Sure. Okay. So that's always huge for me too, because I tend to have my energetic feelers out. So when I get them back is huge. Another thing that is helpful is, I notice that sometimes I carry people around, I'll say in my head, but it's kind of in your energy field, right? So it can be loving opinions and suggestions and advice. It could be your third grade teacher, but you carry people, their energy around with you in your head or in your energy field. A lot of people feel it here because that's where they're thinking. So you can also ask all those folks lovingly to say, okay, it's time to move out. It's time to clear out. And when you do that, you'll also notice kind of where this makes you feel kind of whole because you've gathered it in. This will make you feel kind of open and spacious when you've asked everybody else to vacate the premises.
Yeah.
And they will, just with your request, they will. And they don't even know they're doing it sometimes because other people are keeping kind of energetic tabs on you, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
and they don't even necessarily know they're doing it. They're not meaning harm, but it helps to clear that space. So once you've kind of done those things where you've developed your relationship with the silence, you've called your own energy back, you've asked others to kind of step out of your space, then it's easier to find your center. And
Sure.
your center can move. So mine tends to be kind of in my heart space where this feels like when I can drop out of my head, this is like my energetic center. And I can feel how it opens between this physical, wonderful, beautiful reality we have, and also this kind of like energetic reality that is not only behind and within, but throughout. So it can be here, but for some folks, it's in their solar plexus, like that's their center. Or so for some folks, it can be kind of feel like in their third eye, and that feels like their center. So just notice, and it's kind of a fine tuning. So you're just kind of saying, okay, where does it feel like my center is today? Don't make a big hairy deal about it. Just notice what you notice and allow it to be there and just rest there for a little bit. We don't often rest in our own space. And if you'll just notice that, and then when you kind of start to get back out into your day, you'll hold it for a little while and then you'll lose it. We all do, you're
Sure,
gonna,
because life is poking us.
exactly. And so when you notice that you've lost it, just try to go back to it. So that way it's kind of this game of like, okay, well, I've lost it, but no big deal. Can I find it?
Yeah.
And then it becomes kind of this fun thing that you can do that doesn't feel like, oh, I got you, or oh my gosh, I'm off balance. It can be gentler than that.
Yeah. And I think, I've definitely experienced this in meditation classes where finding your center almost can be like scanning your body and feeling maybe where there is heat or where there feels like a little energetic buzz, or it feels like your body naturally is drawn to that area, almost with your inner seeing. And I do like the idea also of just saying, like, where am I today? I tend to be just like you, very heart-centered. One thing that I like about it in particular is that if you're looking at the 7 major energy centers in the body, they call them chakras, but are really just energy centers. What I like about the heart one is that's right in the middle. So it actually promotes a lot of balance. And I'm a big, I like the woo-woo nature, but I'm also like a very grounded person. So it naturally holds me with, I can send energy up, but I can also send energy down. And I like that. But Michele, I also wanted to go back to this idea of, beings being in your energy field. A story that I heard many, many years ago from my friend he's a clown. He does lots of things, but one of the things that he is a volunteer clown was a volunteer clown for the clown care unit. And these were amazing individuals who would be all kinds of different clown personalities, but they would be visiting terminally ill children. And this was very emotional work for these volunteers dealing with the children and their families.
Sure.
And they would come together and they would have meetings to support one another, just to process this experience. And one gentleman shared, who had been with the clown care unit in New York City for many, many, many years. He was walking down the street. He was sharing this experience that he was walking down the street one day in New York, and a woman stopped him on the street and said, I'm sorry, I don't know what you do, but I just want to let you know that as I'm seeing you, that I do have some like psychic seeing abilities, and there are literally hundreds of children around you.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful. And the guy was like, what? And these beautiful, radiant children's souls were literally all over him. I mean, and it was such an astonishing experience for this woman that she had to share that. And then, of course, he shared it with all of the volunteers of the clown care unit. And it reminded me of just how on one hand it's a beautiful kind of thing, but also that maybe all of that energy was a lot for his psychic being, to have that space to be able to create space for himself and create space for other children. I just thought it was fascinating.
Well, yes, that is number one. It's a beautiful story, and he's doing beautiful work, right? He's doing soul's work, right?
Yeah.
So that's why she could see all of that, the spirits gathered, because they're attracted to the light, of course.
Yeah.
So, and what he's doing is he's being the light wherever he is. And that's why she could see it on the street.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to be all geared up in his clown stuff, doing
Sure.
stuff.
You're right, exactly. He wasn't dressed as a clown at the time.
Right. Himself, right?
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful example of that. And I want to say a couple of things to the people that might be listening. Number one, everyone is that special. If everyone can see how beautiful their soul is and how well supported and guided by energetic beings and helpers and teachers and muses, everyone has that support. Everyone. And I have not met anyone that does not have a beautiful, gorgeous soul. And so that's why the adventure is so worth it, to discover that about ourselves, to realize, oh my gosh, that's what we are, is huge. And so as this lady did, what she did is she gave that gentleman a glimpse. What a gift, a glimpse of what he's truly doing.
Yeah.
He's making people feel better and hopefully making their lives a little easier, and especially this really hard part of being, sick kids. But that's what he was doing, is he was lighting them up individually. And so we all have that possibility, and no matter what work we're doing, to light each other up and be the light, right? So that's a beautiful example of that. And everyone out there, you are that. You are that now, and you're just learning that about yourself. So, and then number two, to just address your question of like, that might have been a lot of stuff, that might be a lot of beings hanging around.
It's a lot of kids.
So, yes. So for example, even before we got on this call, Alexa, I kind of set a container and said, and I invited your soul self in and my soul self. I invited all of your guides that are excited about your work and all of my guides that are excited about my work. And then I asked everybody else who was just curious and just interested and wondering what we're going to be doing here today. I just asked them to kind of stay outside our little bubble. Come participate, come watch, come. We love the energy, but just for this time that we're together, stay outside our little bubble. And souls and spirits and guides, they are so respectful of our request and what we're asking of them. They're like, of course, no problem, we'll do it. No, we just want to be a part of it. So that's not a big deal. So anybody that is feeling like they've got a lot of energy going on, or they can feel their energy beings, they have that sensitivity to them. You can always ask them to step back. You can always ask them to give you space. You can always ask for the pace to slow down. You are in charge. So as much as we're supported and helped and guided, we're the point person here, right? Because we're in the body. So they will be respectful of all of those things. You are always in charge.
I love that, Michele. I really do. And it reminds me, like, if in your house, you open the door, and if there's some unsavory beings that you do not want to let in, it's like, no, you can't come. Or even if you just graciously want to be like, I'm ready to end this evening, graciously leave, or welcome, come in. But I really love the intention of asking, setting the intention and physically, verbally, with your intention, setting the tone of what you want. That's a great reminder. I mean, it's a great reminder for me personally, so I know it must be a great reminder for everybody else. But I think in some ways that I do that, but our conversation really is a wonderful reminder to refine it, to ask really, really what you want. And it's just beautiful. It's really beautiful, because that will change your energy. And then I think it also gives you the space to not take things so personally. Like, my thoughts are who I am. That's not who you are. That's not who you are. Your thoughts are it's a story. So if you're writing a story, if you're reinforcing a story that is lifting you up and moving you in the direction of love, light, and possibility, great. Keep beating that drum.
Yeah.
But if you're sharing a story, if you're telling yourself a story, even in the quiet privacy of your own mind, that is like having an unsavory guest in your house, then bye-bye. Just
Yes.
change the story, put up some beautiful boundaries.
Yes. Yes. So number two, so I have two things to say, and to piggyback on what you're saying, it's so exciting. I'm getting ahead of myself. So yes, if we're taking care of our own energy, then you really don't have to worry about all this other stuff. So, like if you walk into your house and you feel something that feels kind of off, just you want to take care of your own energy. You don't necessarily have to clear your space.
Right.
You can say, you can just make sure you're in your highest possible vibration that you can feel at that point. And if you are, you might not even notice this other stuff because it's not on the same frequency. Right. So, but we do bump into energy waves, so to speak. I like to call them, things that are kind of drifting out there. And you can just simply ask, is this mine? This feeling that I'm feeling, is this really mine?
Yeah.
And you'll get a yeah, you need to take care of your energy, or you'll get a no, that you just kind of felt something. And you can say, oh, it's not mine. I don't even have to deal with that because that's not mine. I just need to keep my vibration to myself. So that's the first thing. So yes to all of that. And then these thoughts, these stories that we're telling ourselves, we tend to believe that they're true, right? Even in the quiet of our own minds, right? That's the truth about ourselves. But really, it's just a creation. It's just a thought is really just a form that we've manifested. And so we don't really think of thoughts as form necessarily because they still kind of feel ethereal, but it's a form. So it's just like this chair that I'm sitting in. It's a form. Right. And so that thought, you can just choose something else. Just like I can choose to sit in a different chair, you can choose a different thought.
Totally.
So when you're talking about telling a different story, it's yes. You can just pick a different story. That doesn't have to be your truth just because you're thinking it.
Right.
It just happens to be what you're thinking right this second, just like this happens to be the chair I'm sitting in right this second.
Right. But that chair is not who you are.
Exactly.
It's just a chair you chose to sit in.
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah. Exactly. It's so funny. But I would just say, just in summary, that what's so delightful about you is that you live this with your vibration and your personality just exudes this. So you have this beautiful way of really living that truth, which energetically gives us permission to do the same. And I think that is so delightful. And then it's infused in the beautiful bursts of insight in your book. So I encourage everybody to get this book and just have it by your bedside or have it by a place where you can just dip into it, have a little nugget of inspiration, a little divine reminder to remember who you are. Because I think the world needs this light. And it's never, if there's anything that this global pandemic has taught us, is to just pause and reflect to see what we're really made of and maybe reprioritize some things, to cultivate kindness and compassion and perseverance and all the things. So I found that as challenging as it's also been an enormous time for self-discovery. And so thank you for the work that you do to help other people.
Thank you. And really what my wish for everyone is for them to remember who they truly are and to allow it to be this joyful, expansive, beautiful, passionate, fun feeling, so to lean into that, to give ourselves permission for that to be a possibility. And you do it beautifully with all of your work and your podcast and your Wishbeads. I have my Wishbead on.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And so it's fun to share the joy.
Yeah, it really is.
Spark joy in others. Yeah.
Yeah. And you never know whose life might be sparked as a result of you showing up and just doing your thing. It's so great.
Exactly.
Yeah. Michele, please tell everybody how they can learn more about your work, in the ways in which you do work with people, if people want to work with you privately or all that good stuff. How can people find you?
Oh, thanks. Well, the best way to find me is on my website, and that's michelesammons.com. There's lots of lovely free things there, lots of resources like practices and guidance and meditations and book suggestions and blogs and video blogs and all sorts of fun things to dabble with. And you can also find out how about to work with me privately or in group settings, and also about the little book. So yeah,
Great.
that's the best way to find me.
Perfect. Well, what a pleasure to know you. What is a pleasure to be inspired by your work. And I truthfully have so loved our conversation. I am absolutely going to come home to myself. I'm going to say goodbye to my beings that I don't need, to give mama a little space.
Exactly.
I truly love this. I've learned so much. So thank you for who you are. Thank you for being on the podcast, and just keep shining your light. It really makes a beautiful difference in this world.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.